All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going deep on something you're clearly interested in based on what you send us. Cybersecurity governance.
A good topic.
It is a big one, yeah. We've got a couple of really interesting resources to help us out here.
Yeah?
First off, we've got these guidelines from the International Board Foundation.
Okay.
And those were actually created by, looks like, Dr. Maya Bundt and Professor Dr. Laura Georg-Schaffner.
Quite the experts.
Yeah, looks like it. And then we've also got an update paper from the Global Network of Director Institutes.
GNDI.
The GNDI, you got it. So you're really trying to get a handle on how boards of directors can, best oversee cybersecurity.
Right.
Especially because things are changing so quickly in the digital world.
Absolutely, yeah. Keeping up is
It's a lot.
half the battle.
It is. Yeah. And let me tell you, some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is pretty eye-opening.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that good security can actually help your business?
That's interesting.
Or that most cyber incidents, get this, involve an insider.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that insider threat thing, it's
It's kind of scary, right?
a little scary.
Yeah, so
It is. Very much so.
let's dive right in.
Let's jump in.
Okay, so first, I think we need to sort of set the stage.
Okay.
Both of our sources emphasize how important ICT is.
Right.
Information and communication technology.
Okay.
Basically, all those online connections that happen every day between people, businesses, devices, data.
The Internet of Things.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's connected these days.
Everything, exactly.
Yeah.
So, think about how much we rely on those connections now.
I know. It's mind-boggling, right?
It's crazy.
Work, shopping, banking, communication, even government services.
Yeah, it's
Healthcare.
It's revolutionary, right?
Right.
It's opened up all these incredible opportunities for innovation, efficiency, global reach.
Absolutely, yeah.
But here's the thing.
There's a but.
All that connectivity,
Yeah.
it also creates this massive target.
Oh.
Yeah.
For cyber criminals.
Right.
More connections, more vulnerabilities, more ways for things to go wrong.
More entry points.
More entry points, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And the GNDI paper, they actually put some numbers to this.
Oh, okay.
They cite some stats from McAfee that estimate that cybercrime costs the global economy over $600 billion every year,
Wow.
annually.
That's a lot of zeros.
Yeah, that's a lot of zeros.
Goodness.
And Gardner, another research company, they predict that businesses will spend something like $114 billion on cybersecurity just in 2018.
Just in 1 year.
Just in 2018, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So I think those numbers really show us why strong cybersecurity governance is so important
Absolutely makes sense.
and why we're having this deep dive right now.
Right now, yeah.
So, okay, here's the thing.
Okay.
Both sources are super clear on this. Cybersecurity is not just an IT issue.
Right.
It is not just some little side project for the IT department to handle.
Uh-huh.
This is a full-blown risk management challenge, enterprise risk.
Enterprise risk, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it demands serious attention from the board of directors.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about it like the board is like the captain of the ship, right?
Okay.
They don't need to be the expert navigators or engineers or whatever.
Yeah.
But they need to understand where the ship's going.
Yeah.
Make sure that the ship is seaworthy.
Yeah, that it can handle.
And that the crew is trained, ready for whatever storms come up.
I love that analogy. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
So oversight in this context, it basically means ensuring that you've got the right people, the right processes, the right resources in place to manage all those cyber risks.
To be able to weather the storm, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's not about being a tech wizard.
No, not at all.
It's about...
You don't need to be a coder.
Yeah, it's about understanding the big picture and asking the right questions.
Right.
Holding management accountable.
Challenging assumptions.
Challenging assumptions, yeah, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about these IBF guidelines.
Okay.
They lay out these 12 key principles for cybersecurity oversight.
12. Okay.
This is really the heart of our deep dive today, so
Buckle up.
buckle up, yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, these guidelines, they were designed with bigger companies in mind.
Okay.
The ones with those professional boards.
Right.
But, the principles apply to any organization, really.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, the core ideas are universal.
Mm-hmm.
So principle number 1.
Number 1, hit me.
Cyber literacy.
Okay.
Basically, board members need to understand cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity 101.
Yeah. Kind of like learning a new language,
Gotcha.
You don't need to be fluent.
Right.
But you need enough to kind of hold a conversation.
To understand the risks and what people are talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the GNDI comes in, right?
Okay.
They add that ideally, at least one board member should have like deep cybersecurity expertise.
Okay.
But even if you have that one person, everyone needs a solid foundation.
Like a well-rounded team.
Yeah.
You need specialists, but everyone's got to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
Be able to work together.
Right.
And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
There was a GNDI survey done in 2020, relatively recently.
Okay.
Only 23.3% of boards had a dedicated cybersecurity expert.
Oh, wow. So less than a quarter.
Less than a quarter.
That's a pretty big gap.
It is.
It really shows why cyber literacy for the whole board is so important.
Makes you think, right?
It does.
About where your boards stand.
It does. Yeah.
And even for you, wherever you are in an organization, do you feel like you've got adequate cyber literacy?
That's a great point.
It's an investment worth making, believe me.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay, so principle number 2.
Okay, number 2.
Know your security leaders.
Okay.
Sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah, on the surface.
Yeah, but the IBF really stresses how important it is for the board to actually know the people who are in charge of cybersecurity.
More than just knowing their names, right?
Yeah, more than just names.
Like really knowing them.
Right.
Yeah.
And the GNDI actually recommends that there should be like regular meetings, maybe yearly or as needed, to really build those communication channels.
Yeah, got to keep those lines of communication open.
You do. So it's about building those relationships.
Right.
You know, open dialogue, understanding perspectives, being able to trust and rely on each other when, you know, when things hit the fan.
Yeah, because it's not a if, it's when. Right.
It is when, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the GNDI talks about this idea of pull and push factors.
Oh, interesting.
So pull means the board is proactively getting information.
Okay.
Requesting reports, scheduling meetings, you know, being active.
Taking initiative.
And push means that security leaders feel empowered to bring things to the board.
Okay.
Even outside of those, you know, regularly scheduled meetings.
I see. So it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
Back and forth.
Yeah, information's got to flow.
Right.
And that makes everything more dynamic and responsive.
Absolutely. Like a feedback loop, right? Where everyone is constantly learning and adapting.
Exactly. Yeah. So crucial for good cybersecurity culture.
For sure.
Okay. Principle number 3.
Number 3.
This one's all about separation of powers.
Okay.
IBF is pretty clear that there needs to be a really clear division between who sets the cybersecurity strategy and then who actually carries it out. Sort of like, you know, separation of powers in a government.
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances. Yeah, you don't want one person or one group having too much control.
Right. Too much power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, for example, you might have a chief information security officer, the CIO.
Right. The CISO.
They set the strategy, define the policies and standards.
Okay, so they're the architects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have the chief information officer, the CIO, and they actually make sure those policies get put into practice.
Okay, so one's strategy, one's execution.
Exactly. And this prevents, you know, conflicts of interest, ensures oversight.
It's all about accountability.
It's all about accountability and transparency. Okay, principle number 4.
Okay, number 4.
This one really gets at the human element.
Right.
Employee training.
Ah, yes.
IBF is very strong on this. All employees need regular cybersecurity training.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean...
It's like having a really fancy security system at your house, but leaving the doors unlocked.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Doesn't matter how good the tech is.
Right.
If people don't know how to use it or what to watch out for,
right,
you're vulnerable.
Totally. And both the IBF and the GNDI, they really emphasize that this is the board's responsibility, making sure that management takes training seriously.
Right.
And that it's actually effective training.
What are they being taught? How often? How is it measured?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
All those good questions.
And remember that stat we talked about before, the insider threat?
Yeah, the one where most cyber incidents involve someone on the inside.
Yeah, either malicious or accidental.
It's scary. It really shows why everyone, from the top to the bottom, needs training.
We all have a part to play.
We do.
It's about creating that culture.
Culture of security awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, principle number 5.
5.
This one's all about making time for cybersecurity on the board's agenda.
Okay.
The IBF says it needs to be a regular item.
Okay.
Not just something you talk about when something goes wrong.
You don't want to just be reacting all the time.
You don't want to be reacting, exactly. You want to be proactive.
But you know what? I was looking at another GNDI survey from February 2020.
Okay.
Only 2% of boards had cybersecurity as like a fixed thing on their agenda.
Seriously.
And 17.2% never discussed it at all.
Wow.
Shocking, right?
That's kind of unbelievable.
It is.
It really shows how much work there is to do to get people talking about this at the highest level.
Yeah, awareness and priority.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's why this principle is so important.
Yeah.
It's a call to action, right?
It is, yeah.
For boards to prioritize cybersecurity, allocate enough time for these discussions, make sure they're staying informed about all the latest stuff that's going on.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a great takeaway for our listeners, too,
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you are in your organization, advocate for cybersecurity.
Yeah, get people talking about it.
Get people talking about it. Make sure it's on the agenda. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
The more we talk about it, the more normal it becomes as just like a core business function.
Yeah, and the better prepared we'll be to deal with all the challenges.
Absolutely.
Okay, principle number 6 deals with risk management.
Risk management, okay.
IBF says the board needs to set a framework, a risk management framework,
Okay.
that ensures adequate controls against cyber risks.
So not just about like building walls to stop the bad guys.
Right. Right. It's not just about defense.
You got to have a plan for when they get in.
Exactly, because they will at some point.
They will.
Yeah.
Happens to everybody.
So it's about defense and response.
Right.
And the GNDI, they suggest using like these recognized frameworks. Have you heard of these?
I have heard of some, yeah.
NIST, COBIT,
Okay, yeah.
ISO 27000.
Yep.
And even the BSI Greenschutz catalog, which sounds very
That sounds very German.
intense, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But basically, these are sets of best practices that organizations can adapt.
Kind of like blueprints, right?
Yeah, blueprints,
So
exactly.
to fit their needs.
So you're not starting from scratch.
Right, exactly.
You're leveraging all this existing knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, to be honest with you, I'm not super familiar with all these frameworks.
Okay.
Can you just give us like a really quick overview of, what they are and why they're important?
Sure, so think of them like, blueprints, right?
Mhm.
For a strong foundation. So NIST, for example, that's actually a U.S. government agency
Oh, okay.
that makes cybersecurity standards and guidelines.
Gotcha.
COBIT, that focuses on IT governance and management.
Okay.
ISO 27000, that's an international standard for information security.
Mm-hmm.
And then that BSI Greenschutz catalog, that's a bunch of security recommendations from the German Federal Office for Information Security.
So we've got U.S., we've got international, we've got German.
We got it all.
It's a lot. But it sounds like they all provide that structured approach to managing cyber risks.
Right, like a step-by-step,
It's yeah.
help you identify, assess, and then hopefully mitigate those risks.
And it's systematic,
Right.
which I think is really helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, principle number 7.
Hmm.
The IBF emphasizes using the right metrics
Metrics, okay.
to understand, the company's overall cybersecurity maturity, resilience, and the threat levels.
You got to measure right.
You got to measure, yeah.
If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
And it's about measuring the things that matter, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
It's not just about picking any old metric,
Right.
but the ones that actually give you a true picture
Yeah, got to be meaningful.
of your cybersecurity posture.
Mhm.
And the GNDI actually warns against just picking metrics that are easy to collect.
Okay.
They say you got to focus on the things that reflect your organization's riskiest areas.
Right, the areas you're most concerned about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also talk about what makes a good security metric, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
So first you need accuracy, meaning your data's precise. You're not using vague measures like, traffic lights on a dashboard.
Right, you want numbers.
You want numbers.
Hard data.
Then you need precision,
Okay.
being able to distinguish between one-off events and patterns.
Oh, okay, good.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there's traceability,
Traceability.
being able to trace a metric back to its source, make sure it's valid.
Makes sense.
And finally, reliability, meaning your metrics are consistent over time.
So you can compare, analyze trends.
I like it. It's like a checklist for good metrics.
It is, right.
Accuracy, precision, traceability, reliability.
Exactly.
Love it.
It gives you that solid foundation to actually make decisions. Right?
Absolutely. It's like,
Yeah.
Where are we now? Where do we need to go? And how do we get there?
You got it.
Love it. Okay, principle number 8.
8, okay.
This is where the IBF wants the board to think strategically
Okay.
about digitalization and technology.
Big picture stuff.
Big picture stuff, yeah. Defining how those elements fit into their current and future business model.
This is where cybersecurity gets interesting.
I know, it's not just about defense.
Right.
It's about opportunity.
Right. Like, how is digitalization changing things?
Exists.
What new models are coming out? How can we use technology to get ahead but still be secure?
You got it.
Yeah.
And the IBF actually argues that good security can become a business asset.
That's interesting.
Yeah, a differentiator in the market.
Yeah.
So like in a world where data breaches are so common, customers are looking for companies they can trust.
Exactly. They want to know their data's safe.
Yeah.
So companies that can prove they take security seriously, they can actually build trust,
Yeah.
boost their reputation, maybe even charge a premium for their products or services.
That's a selling point.
It's a selling point, yeah. So it's turning what's often seen as a weakness into a strength.
I love it.
It's pretty cool, huh?
It is, yeah.
All right, principle number 9. This one's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Allocate adequate resources.
Money, people, resources.
Money, people, resources, all of it, yeah.
Yeah.
To manage technology and cyber risks.
No surprise there.
No surprise there.
Gotta invest.
But they emphasize it's not just about the tech, it's about the people and the processes too.
Right, the whole package.
The whole package.
You can have all the fancy software in the world, but if you don't have people who know how to use it and the processes to support it, it's not going to be effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So hiring skilled professionals, providing training, building robust security processes.
The human element.
The human element, yeah. And recognizing that this is a long-term investment, not a quick fix.
Absolutely. Got to play the long game.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. Principle number 10 gets into the legal stuff.
Oh, okay.
The IBF says the board needs to be aware of all the data and cybersecurity laws.
Oh.
Everywhere the company operates.
Gotcha.
Or has customers.
That's tricky, right? Because laws are different everywhere.
It's super tricky.
Think about GDPR, privacy laws, all those regulations for, like, finance and healthcare.
Yeah, and data localization laws.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, it gets complicated quickly.
It does. It's a lot to keep up with.
So the board needs access to legal expertise. They got to stay informed about all these changes.
Absolutely. Ignorance is not a defense when it comes to the law.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all.
Okay, principle number 11, back to data management.
Data management, okay.
The IBF says the board should ask for a sensible data management framework.
A framework, okay.
Yeah, one that classifies data, measures its value, and allows for risk-appropriate handling.
Makes sense, because not all data is created equal.
Right, exactly. Some data is more sensitive, some's more valuable.
Absolutely.
And the level of protection has to match that.
And they point to the GNDI guidelines on corporate governance of data.
Okay.
For a deeper dive on that, we're not going to get into all the details now.
Sure.
But, think about data classification, inventory, retention policies, access controls. It's a whole system for managing data through its entire life cycle.
It's really all about protecting that data, right? Because that's what the cyber criminals are after.
Exactly.
That's the target.
The crown jewels.
Yeah, the crown jewels.
So a good framework can go a long way in keeping that data safe from prying eyes.
Okay, last principle, number 12.
12, all right.
The IBF kind of circles back to the idea of data as a valuable asset.
Yeah, that's been a theme.
It's a theme, right.
The more companies rely on data, the more valuable it becomes.
Right.
Makes sense.
And the GNDI actually backs this up with some interesting numbers.
Okay.
So there was a report in 2018 by the Brand Finance Institute. They found that intangible assets now account for over half of global enterprise value.
Intangible assets, that's things like brand reputation, intellectual property.
Exactly, and data.
Data. Big one.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
It's huge. So we're not just talking about compliance anymore.
Right.
It's about protecting the very heart of a company's value.
It's their lifeblood, really.
But it really is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole conversation about cybersecurity governance is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about preventing losses.
It's about the future.
It's about the future.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot here with those 12 IBF principles, but before we move on, I want to highlight one more thing.
Okay.
Both sources really emphasize this.
The cyber threat landscape is constantly changing.
It's always evolving.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the GNDI actually points to several things driving this evolution.
Oh, like what?
Well, one of them is quantum computing.
Quantum computing. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
It is.
It has the potential to crack a lot of the encryption we use to protect data.
That's a little unsettling.
A little unsettling, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you've got increasingly sophisticated AI-powered attacks.
AI. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they can actually learn
Learn and adapt.
and adapt to our defenses, which makes them so much harder to detect.
It's like an arms race.
It's a total arms race.
Constantly trying to stay ahead.
Yeah, so it's not just about keeping up with the tech, it's about anticipating what's next.
Thinking ahead.
Staying one step ahead of the bad guys.
Absolutely.
And don't forget the role of governments in all this.
Right, right.
Lots of countries are taking a more proactive approach to defending their infrastructure.
And engaging in, offensive cyber operations. Yeah. It's a whole other level of complexity.
It's a wild world out there.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So it's a complex and constantly changing landscape, that's for sure.
For sure.
And that's why ongoing vigilance and adaptation are so crucial.
Couldn't agree more.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So in part 1, we really got into those 12 principles for cybersecurity oversight from the IBF.
Yeah, that was a great breakdown.
Yeah, I think they provide a great roadmap for boards to follow.
For sure.
But now I'm kind of ready to dig a little deeper into those insights from the GNDI, from their 2019 update paper.
Yeah.
They had a lot to say about the changing cybersecurity landscape, what it means for boards.
They did. And one thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on cybersecurity resilience.
Okay, resilience.
Yeah, they put it up over and over again in their recommendations.
So what does that mean exactly? Is it just another way of saying prevention?
It's more than just prevention. It's like, think of it as the ability to not only withstand attacks, but to actually bounce back quickly and minimize the impact. Like, imagine a rubber band, right? You stretch it, you stress it, but a resilient one, it snaps right back to its original shape.
Yeah.
But a weak one, it might just break.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So a resilient organization can take a hit and keep going.
Keep going, yep.
Whereas a non-resilient one, well, it might just crumble under pressure.
Yeah, and we don't want that.
No, we don't.
So how can boards actually foster that kind of resilience?
That's the question, right?
It is.
What can they actually do?
Well, the GNDI really stresses a holistic approach, integrating cybersecurity into everything the business does. It's not just about having the latest and greatest tech.
Right.
It's about those processes, having a workforce that's well-trained.
Yeah.
And really just a culture where everyone's prioritizing security.
So it's like building a security-conscious environment.
Yeah, from top to bottom.
From top to bottom, yeah.
Everyone's got to be on board.
Everyone plays a part.
Absolutely.
And they have some pretty practical guidance on how to achieve this. So, for example, they suggest that boards establish clear roles and responsibilities for cybersecurity, making sure that everybody knows their part in protecting the organization.
Yeah, no ambiguity.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone knows what they need to do.
They also talk about the importance of regular communication. Information sharing, both internally and with external stakeholders.
Keeps everyone in the loop.
Keeps everyone in the loop, yeah.
Informed.
The more people are aware of the risks, how to deal with them, the stronger the organization's defenses become.
It's like a neighborhood watch program for cybersecurity.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And there's another really important thing they highlight.
What's that?
A solid incident response plan.
Right, because
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Even with the best defenses, breaches happen.
They do. They do.
So you need a plan.
Okay, so what does a good incident response plan look like?
What are the essentials?
What are the essentials, yeah?
Well, it should lay out like clear steps for how to identify, contain, and eradicate the threat. It should address communication protocols, both inside the company and externally. And also have procedures for preserving evidence. And working with law enforcement, if necessary.
So it's like a fire drill, but for cyber attacks.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. You got to practice it.
You got to practice.
You don't want to be figuring things out in the middle of a crisis.
Absolutely not, yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, the GNDI also talks about insurance.
Insurance, okay.
Cyber insurance.
Right.
Have you heard about this?
I have, yeah. It's becoming a bigger and bigger thing.
Yeah, I think it's becoming increasingly important.
It is, yeah.
As these cyber attacks get more and more frequent and more costly.
More costly, yeah.
So can you just give us a little breakdown of what it actually covers?
Sure. So cyber insurance can help with the financial side of a breach.
Okay.
Things like legal expenses, costs of notifying customers, credit monitoring services. And even any losses from the business being interrupted.
So it's like a safety net.
Yeah, a safety net.
It gives you financial protection if the worst happens.
Exactly.
And the GNDI, they recommend that boards really assess their organization's specific cyber risks.
Right.
And then buy a policy that actually covers those needs.
Don't just go with the cheapest option.
Right. Yeah, it's not one size fits all.
They got to be tailored.
Are there other things boards should keep in mind when it comes to cyber insurance?
Yeah, a couple things, definitely. The first one, and this is super important.
Okay.
Cyber insurance is not a magic bullet.
Okay. So it's not going to solve all your problems.
It's not a replacement for good cybersecurity.
You can't just buy a policy and then relax.
No, you got to do the work.
You got to do the work. Yeah.
Still invest in those security measures
Mm-hmm.
to try to prevent the breach in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Prevention is key.
Prevention is key.
And also, this is a big one.
Okay.
Read the fine print.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Those cyber insurance policies,
Mm.
they can be complicated.
Okay.
Lots of exclusions and limitations.
Gotcha.
So you got to really understand what's covered, what's not covered.
Mm.
Might even be worth getting some expert advice
Yeah, good idea.
to make sure you have the right policy.
So we talked about resilience, incident response,
Yep.
cyber insurance.
Uh-huh.
What else does the GNDI highlight for boards?
Well, they spend a lot of time talking about data governance.
Data governance, right. We touched on that a bit
We did.
when we were talking about the IBF principles.
Yeah.
Can you just remind us why that's so important?
Why it matters.
Yeah, especially for cybersecurity.
Well, nowadays, data is like gold.
It is.
It's a valuable asset.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Every click, every purchase, every online interaction creates data.
It does, yeah.
And if you're not managing that data properly,
Uh-oh.
it can lead to all sorts of problems.
Okay.
Data breaches, fines, reputational damage, you name it.
And as we were saying before, data is becoming such a big part of a company's overall value.
Absolutely.
So protecting it is more important than ever.
It's essential.
So what are some specific things the GNDI says boards should be doing?
Well, they recommend establishing a clear data governance framework.
Okay.
So that includes defining roles and responsibilities,
Okay.
implementing those data classification and protection measures,
Yeah.
and then regularly monitoring and reviewing how effective that program is.
So it's about having a structured approach, right?
Yeah, being proactive,
Proactive.
not just reacting.
Thinking about data throughout its entire life cycle.
From the moment it's created to when it's stored, all the way to when it's finally deleted.
Got to manage it every step of the way.
Every step of the way.
And they also talk about this idea of data literacy. Have you heard of that?
Data literacy, yeah, it's kind of like cyber literacy, but for data.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, it means making sure everyone in the organization understands the value of data,
Okay.
the risks associated with it,
Mm-hmm.
and how to handle it responsibly.
So it's about building that awareness.
Yeah, building a culture where everyone gets it.
Everyone understands their role in protecting that data.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting. We talk about data in such abstract terms,
We do.
but it really is the foundation of everything we do in the digital world.
It is. It's the lifeblood.
It is, yeah.
And they also bring up another interesting point.
Okay.
Supply chain security.
Supply chain security. Okay, why is that becoming such a big deal?
Well, think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses these days, they rely on all these different suppliers and partners.
Yeah, it's a complex network.
It is. And if there's a weak link somewhere in that chain, it can create a big vulnerability, even if you have top-notch security yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If one of your suppliers has weaker practices, you're at risk.
It's like that saying, right? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Exactly.
So how can boards deal with that?
How can they address those supply chain risks?
Yeah.
Well, the GNDI recommends being proactive.
Okay.
So carefully assessing the cybersecurity practices of your key suppliers.
Okay, so doing your homework.
Doing your homework, yeah.
Vetting them.
Vetting them, exactly.
Well, maybe even including cybersecurity provisions in contracts.
You could do that, yeah.
So it's about due diligence, making sure everyone's on the same page.
On the same page, yeah.
When it comes to security.
And recognizing that it's not just about your own company anymore.
Yeah, it's about that whole ecosystem.
A whole network.
A whole network, yeah.
And speaking of the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the GNDI also talks about those new regulations.
Right, like GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act.
Yeah, those are game changers.
Why are those so important for boards to pay attention to?
Well, they put a lot of obligations on organizations to protect personal data.
Mm-hmm.
And the penalties for not complying, they can be pretty steep.
Okay.
So it's not just about best practices anymore.
Right.
It's about the law.
Yeah, you got to be compliant.
You got to be compliant, yeah.
And the GNDI recommends getting expert legal advice
Makes sense.
to help navigate all this.
Yeah, it can be really tricky.
Especially for global companies, right?
Oh, yeah. Imagine trying to keep up with all the different laws in all the different countries.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Okay, so we've talked about resilience, incident response, data governance, supply chain security, and even this evolving regulatory landscape.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. It is.
Anything else you want to mention before we move on?
Yeah. Actually, one more thing. It's something that sometimes gets overlooked.
What's that?
The GNDI makes a really important point about this. The human factor.
The human element.
It's the human element, yeah.
Can't forget about the people.
You can't.
Yeah, even with all the amazing tech we have, human error is still one of the biggest risks.
It's true. You can get so focused on the tech, you forget about the people using it.
Whether it's falling for a phishing scam, using a weak password, or just accidentally clicking on a bad link.
Yeah.
People can unintentionally create vulnerabilities.
And the bad guys are just waiting to exploit them.
They are.
So we got to remember, cybersecurity is about technology, but it's also about people.
Absolutely. The human element is key.
And the GNDI emphasizes addressing this through training, awareness programs, and just a culture that encourages responsible cybersecurity behavior.
Yeah, make it part of the DNA of the organization.
So it's about making cybersecurity everyone's responsibility, empowering employees to be part of the solution.
Exactly. Create that human firewall.
I love that. Okay, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up Part 2.
Great discussion.
We've explored a lot of those valuable insights from the GNDI.
We did.
I think our listener is already feeling much more informed.
Hopefully. And in Part 3, we'll bring it all together.
Yeah.
Distill those key takeaways.
Okay.
And offer some final thoughts on how to build that truly resilient cybersecurity posture.
All right. Welcome back to the deep dive. We have really gotten into some interesting stuff with cybersecurity governance.
We have, yeah.
Haven't we?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
From those 12 IBF principles to all those GNDI insights, it's
a lot to unpack.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So in this final part, let's step back and kind of what are the key takeaways?
The big picture, yeah.
The big picture.
Right.
What are the things we want you to remember?
So one thing that really comes through from both sources is that cybersecurity, it's not just an IT issue anymore.
Right.
It's really a core business function.
Yeah.
That needs attention from the top.
The board.
The board, yeah.
And those boards that really get that take that proactive, informed approach, those are the ones that are going to, not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah.
In this crazy digital world.
We got to be ahead of the curve.
You do.
Yeah.
So we saw those 12 IBF principles. They really lay out a nice framework, right?
They do, yeah, very practical.
They emphasize that cyber literacy, the communication with security leaders, separating duties, risk management, all that good stuff.
Data governance, yeah.
Data governance, all of it, yeah. And the GNDI kind of builds on that.
Yeah.
Really stresses that cybersecurity resilience.
Right, remember that rubber band?
Your rubber band, yeah.
Being able to bend without breaking.
And that comes not just from technology, right?
Yeah, that's the whole package.
It's processes, a trained workforce, a culture that really prioritizes security.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom, yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about data governance, how important that is.
It is, yeah.
Data is so valuable.
More and more so every day.
It needs to be managed. It needs to be protected.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget the human element.
Right.
We can have all the fancy tech in the world, but human error, that's still a big vulnerability.
Phishing scams, weak passwords, clicking on the wrong link. It happens.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So we got to train people. We got to raise awareness. We got to build that culture of responsibility.
Make it everyone's job to be a cyber defender.
I love that. A cyber defender. Yeah.
Be that human firewall.
That human firewall.
Along with all the tech stuff.
But the thing is, the threat landscape, it's not static, right?
No, it's always changing.
It's constantly evolving.
You got to keep learning.
You got to keep learning. You got to adapt.
Adapt, be flexible.
Embrace new approaches. Stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is a marathon. It's not a one-time fix.
No, it's a journey.
It's an ongoing process.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've given you a ton of information.
We have.
But what does it all mean for you?
Yeah, that's the question.
The listener, right?
Yeah.
How do you apply this to your organization, to your job?
That's a good question.
So think about those 12 principles. Are they being used where you work?
Yeah, think about that.
If not, how can you advocate for them?
What can you do to make a difference?
And think about your own cyber literacy.
Yeah, are you up to speed?
Are you up to speed?
Do you understand the lingo?
Yeah. Can you participate in the conversation?
If not, what can you do to learn more?
And maybe most importantly, What does cybersecurity resilience mean in your specific role?
Yeah, what can you do right now?
Right now, yeah.
To make things more secure?
So we've given you the tools.
The knowledge.
The knowledge, yeah.
But now it's up to you.
It's up to you.
To take action.
Remember, cybersecurity, it's not a destination.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, yeah.
A continuous process of improving and adapting.
And by embracing that journey, you can help create a more secure future.
For yourself, your company, the whole digital world.
Well said. So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into cybersecurity governance.
Wow, we did it.
We did it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it informative,
Engaging.
empowering.
And we encourage you to check out those full guidelines.
Yes, the IBF guidelines and the GNDI resources.
All the links are in the show notes.
Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay secure.